Hey, there's that logo, and there's that Richard. What's going on?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm good. It is Bronze and Modern Gods. If you're not following us on Facebook and Instagram, please do so at bronzeandmoderngods.com. And again, every YouTuber says it. Hit like, hit subscribe. Why should we be any different? We're saying it too. Viewer mail, as we do now and again, pretty much all the time now when we have a Monday episode, but we also have a few more topics like what's going on at CGC, even more updates, even more conflicts of interest, some good news, I guess, underrated books of the week, our 25-year rule, and our hot book of the week. Richard, it is clone-tastic.
Yep, it is Web of Spider-Man number 118, the first appearance of Ben Reilly.
All right. Ben Reilly. Now, were you reading Spider-Man at this time?
No, I wasn't.
It was such a mess. I think anyone that was older, in their 20s, 30s at this time that had been reading Spider-Man prior to this was like, whoa, this Peter's slapping Mary Jane and there's like 9,000 clones. And is it Professor Warren? Is it Norman Osborn? I'm so confused. But this goes to show you the power of loving the era you grew up in. Kids that grew up reading the Clone Saga, man, they love them some Ben Reilly.
Yeah. This book is just shot. Well, the main draw for the book right now is we have reports that we'll see the Spider clone in the next Spider-Verse movie. And that's really getting people going.
Well, there are 216 9.8s of this book on the census, not scarce at all. I will say it might be a little scarcer in 9.8 than other books from the same time period because this issue had a Marvel subscription insert in the centerfold, like a little card that makes it tougher to press and also may make it a little more prone to damage of people bending it over because of that stiff card inside. But I don't know. I hear a Clone Saga book is hot and I just go to like a dark place.
Yeah. There was a 9.8 sale for $965.
What? This was dollar bin book, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's ever been a dollar bin book, but it's been close.
Oh, She-Hulk was a dollar bin book for ages. And it took off because of, the rumors of the show at that time. And, now the show's honest. What did you think of the She-Hulk show?
Hey, here's the thing. I liked it. I mean, is it a 10 out of 10 home run? No. Is it a good, solid 7.5 entertaining for 30 minutes? Yeah. A lot of these people on social media, they're really review bombing this thing and just they have a real problem with it. And I think it's when you read some of these posts of people who have a problem with the show, the problem does not lie with the show, is all I'm going to say. If you have a problem with the She-Hulk show and your problem is it makes men look bad, Richard, I don't know what to say.
I don't either. I don't know what they were expecting. I mean, to me, it was a great television rendition of John Byrne's She-Hulk.
Oh, but Richard, the Hulk does yoga now. It's completely emasculating.
Oh, God. She has the fourth wall breaking. She's attractive and yet intelligent. And I thought she ran circles around Bruce in a number of ways. But and you saw the relationship between the two of them. It was like you. I don't think it was perfect. I think at the very end when they had Titania break through the wall, I think was a little contrived. But for the most part, I thought it was a pretty good show.
But Richard, she makes a point about women always feeling scared and angry, and that's not how it is in real life. Women are they're fine to walk down the street by themselves, and they never feel threatened by men.
Oh, it's funny because I watched it with my wife, and my wife is sitting next to me, and she's nodding her head as She-Hulk goes through that list of things that women have to deal with, and it's true. If you're not a woman, you probably don't know a lot of that stuff. But
if you haven't hung around a lot of women, you may not know that stuff. That's all I was going to say. I mean, I look at some of these posts on Instagram of people that are just flat out angry that they feminist, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, guys, it's not feminism. It's real life.
Yeah, I thought it, like I said, I thought It was a really good rendition of Burns' version of She-Hulk, which is a little irreverent. Again, breaking that fourth wall like Deadpool has done. And that's all part and parcel to the now if she does the jump rope thing, I'm going to just be this is going to be the perfect season.
Well, wait and see. That is my complaint about Disney Plus. I do have a complaint. One episode a week, guys, that is an outdated model that died with cable television. Can we put that model away, please?
Right.
It's just about the streaming number. Who cares if the streaming number is stretched out over 8 weeks or 10 weeks? I don't know. They must have some sort of strategy that maybe if you come back each week, you'll watch more. I don't. It's the only show on Disney Plus I'm watching.
Yeah, me too. I kind of stopped watching Moon Knight because I forgot the next episode was going to be out.
Right?
Yeah. Yep. Give me like Netflix, give me all at the same time.
All right, moving on to CGC, Richard. There's even more drama since our last episode. How about that CGC signing giveaway event with Jim Lee and everybody on Whatnot?
Oh my goodness. It's, I guess if you just double down on if you're in a hold, why don't you just make it deeper? Why is CGC doing Whatnot events? What I just don't understand the concept of a grading company, a company that's supposed to stand above the individual dealers and sellers and offer an objective form of quantifying books, is selling like a huckster on being a comic selling books like a Carney Barker on Whatnot. I just don't see what they gain out of that.
I do. I can see why. They probably have some hard charging marketing guy in there saying you got to reach a new audience, and this new audience is on Whatnot. And they have a point. Have you been on Whatnot and seen the audience?
Oh yeah. I've bought books for Whatnot.
This audience is so uninformed and so uneducated about comic book collecting. And it's not a bad thing that they are, but they're being taken advantage of, frankly, on Whatnot. I'm going to throw up Dollar Bin Drek from the 90s. Here's Shadowhawk number 3, guys. I'm going to put it up for $1 for a starting bid. And then, that FOMO kicks in and you see books like that selling for $8. And you're like, wait, guys, no, you don't have to do that. Go to your local shop and go to the 50-cent box underneath everything. And you'll find a stack of Shadowhawk number 3s. It's gross. Again, I use that word a lot lately on this channel. Because I can't think of a better way to describe it. And it's almost as gross as Whatnot doing their own exclusives.
Yeah. And that doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. It's interesting that we have such a market that, like you mentioned, is being you're getting people buying and selling books who really I don't think they really understand what they're selling or what they're buying,
or what they're selling in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
We've seen some comic dealers that
But I think there is more it's more of a form of entertainment when I've been on there and I've watched people. It is all about the volume. You move things through. You have a chatter with your audience. You do giveaways. You create this carnival atmosphere. And you sell books around that. You're not selling books necessarily around the comic books, the content of what you're selling. You're selling it more about the experience.
Yeah.
And, if you want to buy that way, that's great. And it's a great way to pass an hour, maybe, to sit there and watch. And sometimes you can get a good deal because the people you're bidding against don't have an idea what they're about the books. But it's just something that I guess I feel I need to be more I need to either be more informed by the seller about what I'm buying. Yeah, I want to have a conversation with the seller that's not clown makeup and redirection And it's
Are there actually people wearing clown makeup on
no,
Whatnot?
no.
Because if there are, I want to follow them.
But there are people who, it sounds almost, I don't want to project too much into it, but it definitely feels more of an entertainment venue than it is a comic book selling venue. And it's because you buy and sell other things on Whatnot as well, not just comics. You can do
Yeah.
sports cards and
Pokemon, all that stuff, and
shoes, and
yeah.
it's a different kind of market. And some people find that dynamicism that they have there really appealing, and they buy a lot of stuff. It's just
I just think
it's not for me.
I just think it comes down to ethics. I hate to, impugn anyone. I'm not going to impugn anyone specifically, but some people have ethics and some people don't. Some people don't have a problem putting up an issue of Fantastic Four number 524 and saying, this is great, guys. It's got Michael Winrigo art and it's excellent. The starting bid's $2 and they let it go to $8. I have seen some Whatnot sellers stop things and say, you know what, that's too much for this book. I'm going to stop it here. That's awesome. I want to see more of that. It takes a lot of intestinal fortitude not to have those dollar signs blind you and just take everything.
But at the same time, it's buyer beware, right? I mean,
yeah.
As a buyer, you should be informed about what you're buying. You shouldn't necessarily listen to someone who says this Ultimate Fallout 4 variant is hot, and you buy it now.
Do we know anybody like that?
Not at all.
Back to CGC. Speaking of that Ultimate Fallout 4 ass a Tate edition. I'm 12 years old, I know. Marvel sent out an announcement to retailers saying, hey, no, stop this. All variants must be approved by us beforehand. So they basically said flat out, this thing is a bootleg. It was not approved by Marvel. Yet CGC is standing their ground. No new statement saying, hey, we messed up by putting on the blue label that this was from Marvel Comics. It's not. It's from whatever you want to call it, Black Flag. And it's just amazing to me that CGC just has dug their heels. What a dumb hill to die on. Just stupid.
No, didn't they say that they're actually going to make a change to a future graded version of this?
Future great. Still say you're wrong here. Sorry, your future stuff excellent, but as part of that future statement, you also have to say, by the way, we're going to pull this back and have them relabeled, and even the Ghost Rider ones and everything that aren't supposed to be being sold right now. And let's not forget the 9.9 and the 10.0 grades that appeared for all of these as if by magic. It's almost like something traded hands that was perhaps green and leafy, and I'm not talking about that kind of lettuce.
Yeah, again, if you're trying to be an objective source, why sully your hands by doing things that have at least the odor of some kind of subjective thing that you're portraying? Somebody gives you a certain amount of money to give certain kinds of grades, and you call it a promotion, but you still give it the same label that you give to the books that people are paying for to get graded. It just muddies the water, and I think sullies their reputation.
Well, let's talk about CGC's business model now. CGC's business model now is not, we're going to take your Action Comics number 2 and grade it professionally and carefully and encapsulate it so future generations can enjoy it. And it's going to maximize your investment and be a third-party grade that will remove all of the friction and disagreement over grading when you sell it through third-party auction houses. Nope. Send us all of your Eternals number 12 variant 1 in 25s. We'll slab them real quick. We'll throw a 9.6 or a 9.8 on it, depending on how much coffee we had that morning. Get it out the door. Get it back in your hands, because volume, folks. That's how we make our Blackstone masters happy.
Some of that you got to blame on the comic book market. I mean,
yes,
4 years ago we weren't in a situation that we are now. There was a reasonable number of books that were coming into CGC to be graded, right? Then you had the pandemic that we had, and then we had stimulus, and now all of a sudden there is a tremendous number of books that are being graded.
Oh yeah.
Um, they've changed ownership. The ownership sees this big flood of potential money, and they do what's necessary for their shareholders to maximize their investment, which means getting these books graded. CGC
which brings us to, go ahead, do it.
CGC just announced very, very proudly that the turnaround time for modern books has shrunk to 35 days, and for fast track moderns down to 11 days, which is
Living proof.
fantastic. Yeah.
Living proof right here. You guys have seen my unboxing videos from the past few weeks where I'm talking about the books I dropped off at San Diego Comic-Con, various tiers. I got every single tier back in less than 4 weeks.
And that's just
to everyone that's like, well, they know who you are and they want to increase their reputation. So they saw your name on they didn't see crap, you guys. We're nobody in this space. We have less than 5K subscribers. Right. I mean, get real. I kind of wish it was the case, but you can give us some cash, but it is not the case. And again, if you follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Bronze of Modern Gods, you will see my posts about this from this week. For all of you fans of RuPaul's Drag Race and Jada Essence Hall, there's a great meme where she's supposed to be a politician giving a speech and she gets questioned. She just goes, "Look over there." And it's really funny because it's like, don't ask me that question. Look over there. And I posted that. And that's exactly what this seems to be from CGC. It's like, stop talking about Black Flag and pay for grades.
It's interesting. Marketing is a good thing, and I think CBCS has had some interesting marketing hits recently and taking advantage of some of the issues that CGC has run into. But neither one of these companies really has a lot of leg room to make mistakes. CGC has got to keep on their guard because CBCS is looking for opportunities to take advantage of misses.
CBCS, I'm looking at you in the eye right now. You're Avis, you're number 2. You try harder. Change your labels. I'm begging you. What do we need to do to convince them, Richard? What do we need? I'm looking at you right now. Look in my eyes, CBCS. What do we need to do?
It's amazing. Yeah, the label that you have now is what I would call serviceable. It's not what you want to have. You want something that stands out. You want something that presents well, that's going to show well from 40 feet away on, when it's on the wall at some convention. And, it draws people in. And you don't have that right now.
And the fact that the restored books have the same color label, there's all sorts of issues. I know you guys are like, there's more than one grading company. Well, then tell them to get off their duff.
Yeah. Hire somebody who has graphic design skills and who will tell you all this stuff too.
I know. All right, let's head to our favorite segment, viewer mail.
You've got mail.
And you kick us off, Richard.
All right. My first piece of viewer mail is from Silver Age Sage, who emailed us at bronzeandmoderngods@gmail.com. Hello, John and Richard. I saw your latest video from August 15th. Lots of fun as always. Thank you. And thought you two would make a stronger connection between the UF4 Black Flag variant and Cerebus Number One.
Mm-hmm.
Although the distribution of UF4 acetate variant by Black Flag was done recklessly and CGC's responses were disrespectful to their customers and collectors, I don't think that CGC's grading the UF4 is nearly as egregious as the 78 Cerebus Number One counterfeit versions that are on the census. That is
and the turtles Number Ones too.
Yes. The counterfeit version of Cerebus Number One represents a real crime where intellectual property was stolen and the creator and publisher did not receive any proceeds from the sales.
I would say the same for the UF4 acetate, but go on.
Yeah, absolutely. Cerebus Number One, in a more real sense, is not a real comic compared to the UF4. Going farther back are the IW publications Super Comics reprints.
But those were actual, they made it to the newsstand. They were sold as comics. I mean, they were they were assumed to be in public domain. Many of them weren't, but go on.
Which also mostly unauthorized reprints of comics from the 50s and 60s. These comics are also theft of intellectual property and were not authorized by the original publishing companies. Many of those titles can also be found on CGC census. Yes, they can. I mentioned these to point out that CGC has already set the precedent for grading and encapsulating comics with problematic origins. What do you two think about the counterfeit versions of Cerebus Number One and IW Publications comics being graded? Also, full disclosure, I would eventually like to add the UFR Black Flag variant to my collection since I collect controversial comics. Yes. I pass no judgment on anyone buying and collecting what they want. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Silver Age Sage. That's a great question. Yeah, that I did not connect the dots, even though we talked about Cerebus. I did not connect the dots between the two books. The Cerebus Number One counterfeit book. I am very surprised that it made it to the census. I mean,
I will tell you why.
Oh, okay.
What is the original mission of CGC? It's in the name. Certified Guarantee Company. They are certifying a book. Now, the Cerebus Number One counterfeit, the Turtles Number One counterfeit, it says on the label, counterfeit. They put it right there. They don't say Cerebus Number One 8.0. They say counterfeit right there. So they are certifying that this is not Cerebus Number One. They did not do that with Ultimate Fallout 4 Acetate Bootleg Edition. IDW is a whole other can of worms. You know, there's arguments that stuff is public domain at that time, that it wasn't, etc. They were also sold on mass newsstands along all other comics back then. So that one's a little more gray area, but CGC is saying this is counterfeit when it comes to those two counterfeit books.
Right, but I mean, by giving it a label and giving it a place in their census, they are giving credence to this book. They're giving value to this book, even though it's not a real Cerebus Number One.
You could argue they're taking the counterfeit stuff off of the open marketplace raw, so people don't get swindled as well. Because now that it's slabbed, you know, are you going to crack it open and sell it as a real one, or are you just going to take your loss? I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's another possibility in their thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I would much rather see them just reject any counterfeits that get submitted to them.
And then they go up on eBay, and you know, somebody doesn't know better.
There's nothing stopping somebody from taking a counterfeit now, like you mentioned, cracking the case and selling it for a real one.
I guess not.
You know, fortunately, most of the market knows how to detect one of these counterfeits, but I don't think it's their place to be the policeman for. And I shouldn't say it that way. I don't think they should codify these things, these counterfeits, by adding them to their census. They should simply just reject them. If I send in a photocopy copy of Amazing Fantasy 15, do I get a counterfeit and a grade on it? That would be wonderful. I can have 15 in my collection that way.
Some people send them in with facsimile covers, you know.
Yeah, and they get NGs for it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and I would have been happy with an NG, but they don't do that. They give it a real grade as if it was a real book. It's a part of their census, and I think that's wrong.
That's a really good call, Silver Age Sage. Wow, that's the murky. Short answer: we don't have an answer. Okay. My first piece of viewer mail is also from bronzemoderngods@gmail.com. Comes from our friend Mark Wild. Hey, John, way back in one of your videos, I believe you mentioned that you either have a collection or have an affinity for Kid Cult Outlaw. I found it to be a rather obscure title I had never come across until watching your show. Now, as I've been out hunting for books, those books have popped up. I'm just wondering if you have a run of the series, which ones are you missing, if you're missing any. I thoroughly enjoy your program, seeing how you guys are close in age to myself, so I can relate to the headaches and heartaches of this business. Keep up the great work, and I'm enjoying the bonus content of unboxings and surprise live streams. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Respectfully, Mark Wild. You don't have to be respectful to us. Why?
Very few people are.
Kid Colt Outlaw. Yes. I've mentioned this before. People are like, why do you like these obscure, weird titles? They tend to be from Marvel because I collected the Marvel stuff for years and decades, and I found it to be too easy. I know that sounds really pompous and elitist, but at a certain point, I was like, you can find X-Men 94 anywhere. You just got to look for 5 minutes. You can find tons of copies. Can you find a Kid Colt 94 in 7.0 or higher? Not just any Kid Colt. I collect the Jack Kirby covers. Jack Kirby did a whole series of covers for Kid Colt Outlaw for a good 3-4 year period. That's what I collect. Beyond that, not really. I collect Two Gun Kid as well because those have Kirby covers. Once the Kirby's covers stop, so do I. Rawhide Kid, Kirby actually did interiors for issue 17 to about 40. I get those as well. I'm a Jack Kirby guy. That's why I grabbed those. But great question. Thanks, Mark.
Yep. John collects more than just superheroes.
Yes, I love me some Patsy.
Okay, our next one is from friend of the show, Vixter 4000. I honestly think CGC should have a different label for this altogether. Talking about again the acetate book. If they continue to grade this book in its type, I don't have a problem with people like the book, but how can a comic book store just patch a book together and get a blue label? That's a great question. What's stopping Frankie's Comics tomorrow from stapling a photocopy of something on the cover and calling it a store exclusive?
Well, now that CGC statement going forward, that's gonna stop them. This horse is glue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun to talk about, but it's also tiring in a lot of respects. I just smell 1993 all over again.
Really? What does 1993 smell like?
Every Tribe number ones, every Image number one being ordered by the caseload, and everybody being told they're going to put their 5 kids through college by buying these books and saving them, and that's this whatnot exclusives and acetate covers that only 750 are going to be available at this one show only. This is not comics.
Yeah, it does. Again, there's a lot of theatrics to it and false scarcity and tactics that are used in other industries to generate sales, not to necessarily tell a story or to have ongoing steady revenue, but to generate spikes in sales. That's why you get 80 covers for Amazing Spider-Man 900, not because Marvel, out of their goodness, thinks there needs to be 80 covers, but because they think people will buy 80 covers.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's this way the market is right now, and hoping it's cyclical, and we'll see a change and things will streamline down. But right now, that's how things are.
My next piece of viewer mail is from Timothy Markin, but it could have come from several of you who also wrote the same thing in our DMs. I even got the same comment from our good friend Sandy Reskin, who used to work at DC Comics. He texted me over the week and said, "What are you guys thinking?" And it is about Nexus. Timothy writes, "Now Nexus, I really went for Nexus starting in 1983 and with the color comic, and now have the 3 black and white issues. Truthfully, I love it for the art, but I do enjoy a bit of space opera. It did get a little confusing in later issues, though. However, I was never a fan of the Badger. I always saw him as a Wolverine wannabe. So we are close to the same age, but we do differ a bit in our tastes." Timothy, 9,000 other people, not really, but a lot of people came at us saying, what is it with you two and Nexus? Nexus is great. It's one of the best comics ever written and drawn. What is wrong with you guys? Yes, agreed. Nexus won Eisner's, Nexus won many awards. Should I try it again? I'm going to dip my toe into a little more Nexus here. I promise you.
Is there an omnibus for Nexus?
I'm sure. I think Dark Horse did a few things, but I'm sure it's available digitally,
Mhm.
legally or illegally. But yeah, Nexus. I hear you, Nexus fans. I hear you. I respect you. I'll try it again.
You
But yeah, to your point, Timothy, Badger did get a lot of stick back in the day for being a Wolverine knockoff. Richard was there. We've heard that before too.
I'm sorry, Badger Wolverine, the characters have the same kind of personality. It's a ripoff. I'm sorry.
Well, but the Badger was truly crazy. What is your next piece of viewer mail, Richard?
All right. My next piece is a I guess the other one I read was kind of long, but I'll read this one too. This is from Saul for X. Um, I don't think it'll be something that's really discussed on your channel.
Oh ho ho!
Well, man, we're gonna fix that.
Au contraire, Sulfur X.
But it consistently baffles me when people say I can finally be inspired by / identify with this character because of the color of their skin. I'm not saying that the perspective is wrong or shouldn't be held by anyone. I just felt that growing up, I was inspired by giant robots that turn into cars and aliens and cat people. And I can think of all the black NFL players who have Wolverine tattooed on their arm or who wear Punisher t-shirts and so on. A part of me thinks it might actually be anomalous to require someone to look like us in order to feel inspired or moved by them. But I'm sure the more racist / sexist of a society is, the more those perspectives can be asserted onto a society's populace. In the end, is Simba's story unmoving or unidentifiable because it's about an anthropomorphic cartoon cat person? It feels weirdly sad if that's true for some persons. Okay, so first and foremost, John and I, we have aspects to our personalities that we don't normally share when we're talking because we're talking funny books. Um, but we don't shy away from them either. I mean, we bring things up about ourselves. I'm African American, and
And
proud.
I'm a big homo.
Yes, he is. There are aspects of our personalities and ourselves, and they don't necessarily always tie directly into our comic book hobby, but some ways they do. I grew up in the 70s and early 80s at a time when television was full of, um, you know, television shows that focused on Caucasian people. There were a couple black shows, sure. There were things like The Jeffersons and Sanford and Sons, which neither one I would necessarily think is something that I took inspiration from either one of those shows. But there and in culture in general, it did not focus on a average day-to-day um hero who was African American, not a hero that was pigeonholed into some category. The Falcon was around in comic books, but the Falcon was a sidekick. There are a lot of sidekicks who are black or Asian or some other uh, racial group. But it and this came out about after I'm an adult now, and Miles came out in 2011. Um, and it blew me away, mainly because Miles is an everyman hero, just like Peter Parker is an everyman hero. He doesn't focus on the fact that he is anything other than a teenager who's scared and trying to figure out how to live his life with these superpowers that he has and the obligations that he has in front of him. And for years and years, as I'm growing up, I saw Peter, and he had those same struggles, but in some degree, there was a separation between me and Peter. With Miles, I see a lot of me in him. I see a lot of the same kind of struggles, the same kind of relationships, um, and this the fact that he not only looks like me, but has a lot of the same background. And I can't stress enough how growing up it is important to see a reflection of yourself in your society. Um, Without that reflection, you feel an outsider. You really do. And for most of my childhood, I really didn't have that kind of reflection. You know, I'm not a sports guy, so sports characters really didn't mean anything to me. I'm a geek. I've been a geek since I was 10. Um, so it was really important to me to see an accepted African American lead character, another Spider-Man, you know, reimagining Spider-Man in a different light, in a different, you know, part of a different generation. It inspired me, you know, 50 some odd year old me, watching this and seeing this. And you know, I have kids. I have two children, and both of them love the Spider-Verse movie. And it's great to see in their eyes that reflection of themselves in society. You know, it's not called out that he's African American in the movie. He is just, again, a teenager going through these struggles and trying to find the best path that he can. And it's hard to describe if you don't have the experiences. And maybe you do. Maybe you do, and I don't know. But for me personally, it's difficult to describe how important it is to see that reflection. And you talk about Simba, and yeah, there are there are things that you can associate with anthropomorphic characters. You know, anybody who watched that movie had a tear in his eye, um, you know, in various parts of that movie, and you sympathize with them.
What
But
movie is this?
this is
I'm kidding, I'm joking.
Lion King, for those who don't know. But it's, you know, it's, you may identify with them, and you may take inspiration from them, but I think it's a surface level kind of inspiration. It's an external one as opposed to an internal one. And that's what I get out of it. You know, I don't want to belabor it. Again, it's a part of who I am, and it's part of an aspect of me, but it's not all of my comic book hobby. It's a portion of it, and it affects it. And my collection of Miles books is pretty strong, mainly because I feel that you know, that affinity. And it's it's um it's important to me, and I think anyone else who is a person of color identifies, just like Ms. Marvel, the TV show, has I'm sure affected a lot of other people of color who now have that person to have as a reflection of themselves. So that's my feelings on it.
I do have to say this, Saul for X. I think your comment came actually from a really honest place. I want to thank you for that, because it wasn't, you know, like, well, who cares? Race is, I don't see race, you know, all those types of comments. I think you came from a real honest place of questioning. And so I respect that. I will say from my end, I had no one growing up to look at that reflected me in comics. I mean, the closest I got was North Star, which was like, oh, great.
What an asshole. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the one that's going to be gay. Excellent. And then, you know, I will say, when I think the most significant thing for me to identify with in that area was Midnighter, which was, oh wow, the kick-ass Batman analog from the Authority is gay, and he's got a husband, Apollo, and he's wearing leather. What? So that was kind of cool. But I also have to say, you never saw Peter Parker get followed in a store. You never saw Peter Parker have to be afraid to get pulled over by, you know, he didn't drive because it was New York, but you know what I'm saying.
Mhm.
So I think if you've never experienced being the other, it is hard to understand. Once you have experienced being the other, understanding comes real friggin' easy and quickly.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to thank you for the comment. It is something that needs to be absorbed, but not necessarily brought up all the time. But um, and I think that's part of the problem that people have with this phase of the MCU. Ms. Marvel is being tanked on. She-Hulk is being tanked on. Marvel is experimenting with bringing to the front a lot of marginalized characters and groups, and I think that's wonderful. It expands their market and their audience, and it gives people an opportunity to see people like themselves. And I think that's a wonderful thing. It sometimes may not be what the majority wants to see, but I think it's important. I think it's important that everyone has a voice, and I love these shows. And some of them are better executed than others. I will definitely say that. But you got to admit, some of the first MCU phase movies I can think of, like the first Hulk, where just
Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2. Yeah, ask our mutual friend Evan. He harps on that movie all the
One of the worst Marvel movies. I know.
Yeah, so it's you gotta, but you know what? I have to also say, give it a chance, because the thing about the way Marvel makes movies is they, it's this huge arc, and all the threads that they're putting out right now are all going to come together. If it's anything like how Endgame came together, 20 some odd movies that's culminated in one. We're going to see some of these threads pulled together as we get farther and farther into this phase and the next phase. So give Marvel a chance. Just be patient.
And Eternals wasn't bad because it had a multicultural cast.
It was just bad.
It was just bad. It was bad because it was slow moving. And all right, I'm not going to waste any time because this has been a long episode. Here's the 25-year rule. 25-year rule this week. We're going to look at Static number 45, the last issue of this groundbreaking milestone media series. Now, don't cry for Static. He'd return in just 3 years later with Static Shock on CW Kids and be reborn, basically. Static number 45 has a gorgeous cover by Mobius. Now, why are you going to spend money to have Mobius do a cover for your last issue?
Maybe that's a good question. That is a very good question.
Maybe because nobody knew this was going to be the last issue. If you look at the letters page of Static number 45, it's business as usual. They're talking about issue 46 coming up, and it never came. Same deal with Hardware number 50. They're talking about the next issue of Hardware, and that disappeared. Now, the lower print run means this last issue commands a premium. And when I say a premium, I mean a premium. The 12-month average last year for a CGC 9.8 was $816.
Yeah, I'm looking for this. I've been looking for this for a while. It's a tough book to find.
Now's the time. It's dropped to the $425 to $460 price range for a 9.8. So if you want to fling around some money, there you go.
Yeah, and hey, anybody who watched the CW show, I loved it. I thought it was a great show. I would love to see another animated Static Shock, more so than a live action, I think. But yeah, this is a great pick.
And it's been 25 years since Static had his ongoing. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, man, that's just.
Let's not get too depressed about time marching on and move on to our underrated books of the week. Richard, I won't tell you how old this book is.
Yeah. My pick this week is Wolverine number 1 from 1988. This is from the ongoing series, not the limited series that appeared earlier. This is Chris Claremont and John Buscema doing Wolverine in a way that they can't do in the limited series or in the X-Men. It's
Did you like it?
I like aspects of it. Yeah.
They wanted to do Terry and the Pirates. Everybody was like, "What's this patch thing?" And
yeah, I know that. Anyway, it ran for 190 issues, so it's not like some.
Oh, they ditched the patch thing real quick.
This book is not necessarily rare, but I think it's an important book. It gave Claremont some breathing space to kind of play with Wolverine as a character outside of an ensemble group. So a lot of Wolverine's background came out of this series. So I think this is an important book. And if you're looking, Wolverine is coming to the MCU. It's not when, it's if. And I'm sorry, it's not if, it's when. We get mutants, we're getting Wolverine, just because he's such a popular character in the zeitgeist that there's no way that Marvel is not going to take an opportunity. They paid how much money for all those, for the Fox licenses?
Right.
So yeah, this is of the books for Wolverine. You know, you're talking Hulk 181, then the 182. You know, that whole trifecta, or his limited issue number one, which is that gorgeous Frank Miller cover. I think this is the most affordable one. You know, this is the number one of the ongoing series. There are about 3,000 9.8s on the census, which I'm kind of surprised looking at the back cover of this book.
Yeah,
And
historically tough.
yes, you got all the bad stuff. You got a black black side and you've got a white side. So, you know, one or the other is going to get some kind of schmutz on it. But yeah, there's 14 9.9s and even a 10, which I find is amazing because this book, you know, what came out in 1988, CGC didn't start grading books for decades after this. And it got a 10. So somebody really, really, really took care of the book. The 90 day for that is for a 9.8 is $425, which I think is reasonable for this book. But even better, the last sale for this book, you know, we're hitting a soft market, was for a measly $350. So if you can't afford the other books I mentioned for Wolverine, this is a great way to get in. The non-graded books, you know, the raw books and the lower grades are much more affordable, and it's a good way to get into a Wolverine collection.
Awesome. Good one. I was managing the comic shop when this came out. And I remember ordering cases and cases of this book. Not a rare book, but it is tough and great because of that cover. My underrated book of the week is Fear number 11, or as it's commonly misnomered, Adventure into Fear, because it says that on the cover. This is the first Steve Gerber script for the Man-Thing. It is not the first Man-Thing in Fear. That would be issue 10. But this is the first script by Steve Gerber, who really became intimately entwined with the Man-Thing. But that's not why it's an underrated book. It's also the first appearance of the Sorceress Apprentice, Jennifer Kale, and the first mention of the Nexus of All Realities. And it's got a great Neil Adams cover. Look at that. Higher grade copies of this raw are selling for $200 plus on eBay. What the heck?
Yeah.
Now, hold on, strap yourself in there. A CGC 9.8 sold in June for $8,050. I can see a 9.8, this being a tough book. This was, again, quarter bin fodder for decades. A more realistic 8.5 sold in May for $365, which still seems incredibly high for me, but people specking on the Nexus of All Realities because of the multiverse, maybe, the MCU?
I think so. I thought that would be the only reason why I could see this book going for $8,000 for a 9.8.
We're specking on locations now. So,
this is a strange spec if you're specking on it. But no, I think this is an important book.
So, Fear number 11. If you're working on your Man-Thing run, don't delay. Do it today. That is going to wrap it up for us this week. Richard, remind everybody where they can find us on social media, please.
On Facebook and Instagram, they can find us at Browns and Modern Gods. And on the website, they can find us at brownsandmoderngods.com.
Please help us out by hitting like. And if you have not subscribed, please do so. And we will catch you next time.
Everybody stay safe.